Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of Hop-Frog, a story by Edgar Allan Poe. The original title of Hop-Frog was Hop-Frog or the Eight-Chained Orangutans. And this story explores themes of revenge, madness, and dehumanization. The story tells about the revenge that was taken by a jester Hop-Frog on his abusive king. And Hop-Frog draws inspiration from the tragic event which happened in 1393 at Bal des Arts when King Charles VI and five knights were burnt alive while performing a chivalry in flammable outfits. Flammable means a dress which can catch fire easily. And this story takes place in some unnamed kingdom, and there the jesters in the court had not altogether gone out of fashion. That is, in a king's court, we'll definitely have fools or jesters. That was still there, prevalent at that time. Now, the story is told by an unnamed narrator, and he describes his king and his seven ministers and his jester. And the monarch, that is the king and his ministers, are large, corpulent, oily men, and they have no affinity for jokes, particularly practical jokes. That is, they will body shame anyone, they'll have fun at the expense of others. And the king's jester, his name is Hop-Frog, and he is a little person, that is, he is short in height by birth, and he was a person who was forcibly taken from his home country, and he was given as a present, as a gift to the king. And the narrator says that he does not know what Hop-Frog's real name is, but because his legs are a bit twisted, and so when he walks, he will be jumping a little bit, he'll be limping, and that is why the king started calling him Hop-Frog, and that became his the name which he is addressed. And whenever the seven ministers and the king they call him Hop-Frog, they start laughing, and they have a good time about it, and they are not worried about how his heart will be affected, how his mind will be affected. Now, Hop-Frog's size and gait amuse the king and his ministers, but the opposite is true, because Hop-Frog has a friend Tripita. She is also another person who is again short in height by birth, and she was also taken from the same homeland as Hop-Frog. But Tripita's grace and exquisite beauty made her very popular, and therefore she was one of the king's favorite. And she was a very close friend of Hop-Frog. One day the king plans a masquerade ball, but he and his ministers are not able to decide on what costume they should wear. So they decide that they will ask Hop-Frog and Tripita and see what ideas they can give. And in order to entertain himself in the court, the king forces Hop-Frog to drink a goblet of wine. And Hop-Frog is a person who gets almost mad if he drinks. The king knows all this, but in spite of that, he asks for Hop-Frog to drink a goblet of wine. Now, Tripita steps in and begs the king to stop because he is giving him too many goblets of wine. But the king, who is enjoying this amusement with Hop-Frog, pushes her down, and above all, he throws wine in her face. Now, Hop-Frog, seeing this, he grinds his teeth in anger, but then collects himself and he promises to drink as much as wine as the king is going to ask him. He's not going to stop because the king is thinking that as he drinks, he's going to become mad, and that will be an amusement for him. But Hop-Frog decides, how much ever you give, I'm going to drink it, and I'm going to irritate you in that way. And then when the king is asking him about that costume, he says, I have an idea. Why don't you people all dress up? That is, you and your seven ministers dress up as orangutans. And if you go there in the crowd, everyone will get scared thinking that the real orangutans have come. And the thing is, it should be very natural. And so the king tells him, okay, you itself prepare our dresses. And so he dresses them in the cotton shirts and pants and covers them with tar and flax. And then he chains them together at the waist. Now, Tripita is the person who is given the in charge to prepare the ballroom, and Hop-Frog gives her a lot of instructions. So, by removing the chandelier and ensuring that the torches line the room in the hands of the Caritites, archetypal pillars are sculpted as women. And the king and the ministers enter the ballroom at midnight, and as expected, the crowd gets scared after seeing them. and all the partygoers attempt to leave, but all the doors are shut because the king has ordered all the doors to be shut, to be locked, and the keys are with Hop-Frog. Now Hop-Frog follows noiselessly at their heels, and quietly what he does is he twists the king's and the other orangutans' chains together, and he links that chain all in one. Now the people are so scared, thinking that real orangutans have come there, and in this chaos the chandler hook descends, which is actually descended by Tripita, and Hop-Frog quietly intersects the chains in such a manner that the chains of all these men are connected to the chandelier's chain. And the chain rises, most probably it must be Tripita who is pulling the chain. And now all the king and the 7 ministers face one another. They come to the center of the room and they face one another, and slowly they are pulled up very fast. And now they are hanging above the crowd, and the crowd understand now this is all one joke to entertain them. At this time, Hop-Frog grabs a torch and pretends that he doesn't know the men. So he says, I will go closer to them and see whose face it is, and I'll try to unmask them. So he goes there, and the minister and the kings are wearing a dress which is with tar and wax. So the moment Hop-Frog goes near them, because of the fire and the torch, all the ministers and the king, they catch fire in less than a half minute, and they burn to their death above the party, and no one down is able to go near them, and all the party goers there, they are looking at it at horror. And Hop-Frog, before escaping, he delivers a speech. He tells the crowd that the orangutans, now he knows, is the king and his ministers, and he's saying, the king who does not scruple to strike a defenseless girl, and his 7 counselors who abet him in the outrage, and he says that this is my final jest, and then he climbs up the chain, and through the skylight he escapes. And the narrator presumes that Hop-Frog and Tripita, they have returned to their home country, and they are happy after that. The story ends here. If you have anything more to add on to what I have said, please write it in the comment box, like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.